And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook. It is Sunday, April 21st, and this outlook is for Monday into Tuesday. And of note, on this Sunday, we're watching low pressure North Pacific into the southwest quadrant of the Bering Sea, and there's actually two low areas that are combined into one. And this feature is eventually just going to kind of sit and spin here out over the central lower portion of the Bering Sea with a front that'll gradually work its way northeastward and eastward across the Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula, as well as up towards St. Matthew and toward the southwest coast. But it's not going to be fast moving, not like some of the systems we've seen here late winter, early spring. But we do anticipate areas of IFR all the way from the Arctic coast, Utqiagvik, down across the North Slope, in through sections of the middle upper Yukon Valley, much of the southwest, areas along the Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai, into the inner coastal mountains and channels here of the Panhandle, and then back out through the southwest Gulf, and then covering much of the Bering Sea. And this, you can kind of see the arc in this IFR. That's a result of the front that'll be gradually working eastward. There's also going to be some stronger gale force winds around that low. As we go into Monday afternoon, the front does slowly progress eastward with IFR conditions there. Eastern Aleutians pushing to the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Some lingering IFR in the central Brooks Range on the southern slopes, and then areas of the western Gulf, still some IFR. As we get into Monday night, Tuesday morning, there is going to be a slug of moisture, another push of rain go across Kodiak Island. Not as heavy as what happened this previous week, but nevertheless, as we go through Monday night into Tuesday morning, there will be some rain that pushes across Kodiak Island. We expect IFR conditions here along this area of the western Gulf. Again, up along the Brooks Range, back through the Seward Peninsula, down through the Bering Strait, and much of the northern Bering Sea covered in IFR conditions. And then Tuesday, we look for that to relax a bit. Some better weather over the Panhandle, VFR anticipated. Still, though, IFR conditions, southwestern Gulf along the east side of Kodiak Island to the north Pacific there, side of the Alaska Peninsula. And then we also find just outside of Kuskokwim Bay through Etolan Strait to St. Lawrence, likely to have some IFR conditions there. Now, looking at past conditions up there through the east central portion of the Brooks Range, IFR, Anatuvik Pass, as well as Adigan Pass on Monday. Further south and west, Lake Clark and Merrill, that west arm of the Alaska Range, will start out with IFR but becoming MVFR. Same thing, Rainy Pass, IFR in the morning, becoming MVFR. Windy Pass, also some IFR conditions giving way to MVFR during the daytime. And further east, Isabel, kind of just east of the IFR conditions, MVFR to start, becoming VFR, and then a pocket of VFR conditions around Metasta Pass there at the far east end of the Alaska Range. And as we drop down into the Copper River Basin, Tanita Pass may see IFR conditions on Monday morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. And Portage Pass should largely be MVFR during the day on Monday, though at least in the morning, the east entrance areas going out into Prince William Sound likely will have some IFR conditions. And then in the far north end of the Panhandle, Chilkoot and White, we'll see some IFR conditions early in the day Monday, giving way to MVFR. Now, freezing levels aloft and at the surface, I guess, first of all, we still have some ridging in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, so you can kind of infer a ridge axis that still kind of runs in this general area, though it is not nearly as strong as the ridge was latter part of this past week. We had freezing levels aloft in excess of 6 and up around 8,000 feet in this region of northwest Canada. That has shrunk back to only 2,000 and 4,000 feet. Surface freezing line, there's some areas here up into the Yukon Valley, Kuskokwim Valley, where readings could stay above freezing Monday morning. Now, the icing threat, there's a bit of a low pressure down here, some moisture being pulled back, so we could see some moderate icing above 7,000 feet, lower Gulf into the northwest Gulf. Up along south slope of the Brooks Range, middle and western Brooks Range above 2,000 feet, and then a broad area of moderate icing possible here throughout the central Bering down into the eastern half of the Aleutians to the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, all along that front that's occluded above 3,000 feet over the central Bering, and where the air is a little warmer, especially aloft, above 8,000 feet there in through the eastern Aleutians. So here is the upper level jet stream pattern on Monday. And you can still see some hints of ridging in this region, ridge axis. As we look down here, we have a bit of a low south of the Gulf. And then here's the strongest feature is this low sitting out here back toward the western Aleutians. Bring it down to 9,000 feet or 700 millibars. You clearly see that low circulation, infer the occluded front wrapping around it with a pretty decent belt of 45 to 60 knot winds. And also here south of the Gulf in the North Pacific, we have that low circulation. And then as we bring it down to 3,000 feet above the surface, you see a belt of winds out of the southeast, 30 to 40 knots, pushing up into the Gulf. South of there up to 50 knots, and then here's the bigger system. This is a broad system. This low is just going to kind of open up. It bottoms out down near 970 millibars, and then it begins to expand the wind field, but a broad area of winds 45 to as high as 65 knots, covering a good portion of the central lower Bering Sea and then impacting especially the central western Aleutians, as well as crossing through the eastern Aleutians to the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. So the greatest threat of turbulence on Monday is going to be way out to the west and southwest. St. Paul, there, the Pribilov Islands, could even see some isolated severe turbulence as a stronger wind field associated with that occluded front approaches on Monday afternoon. And as the winds begin to pick up along the southwest coast, we could have some areas of isolated moderate turbulence along the southwest coast, including Nunavik Island back to St. Matthew. But a broad area of moderate turbulence is anticipated from the tip, the lower portion of the Alaska Peninsula, extending out along and through the Aleutian chain.